And so let me mute. I'm going to mute everybody right now. And yeah, we're going to get started. So just as a brief overview, so the main thing that we did last session that you guys had with Jason is we talked about like the things that tie your front-facing website with your people database. So basically how these two tabs really tie into one another, and how that's really a lot of the strength of the platform itself for your club, is that anything that takes place, any action somebody takes on your front-facing site, whether they RSVP for an event, or if they sign up to volunteer, or whatever happens, all of those things all those actions that they can take immediately just feed as a portal into your larger people database, and into your people tab. So as an example, if we go to Jacqueline's individual person profile here, every single time someone takes an action on this front-facing site, like signing up to volunteer, or signing up for an event that you guys might have, puppies. If we go to any of all of these things, and take any sort of action, then those things will create an individual person profile inside of our people database. And when we do that, it creates a person profile exactly like this. And you can manage your memberships and all that sort of good stuff here. So what we're going to do is that we're going to look at some of the more interesting and kind of like higher level stuff that you can do with your nation, like how to manage and really get the most out of an individual person's profile here, how to look at people in aggregate, so looking at tags and lists and things like that, how to put together some of those things, and also how to build kind of an infrastructure inside of your nation. Invariably, it was a part of your guys' prereqs for this course, to really think about who was responsible for what in your club. Because we can actually customize literally everything from what people can see, to what they have access to inside of your nation based upon their roles and their responsibilities. One quick thing before we get started and really dive deep, you can import in, and we're not going to go into this in depth, but it is possible if you are in the People tab inside of your nation, under more, if you're under People and then more and then import, it is possible to import in data yourself. And it's really, really straightforward stuff. We have a lot of really amazing support documentation on it. So you can import in your own data if you have your own lists, like Excel spreadsheets and stuff like that from your clubs. Or just want to type in some of the stuff that you already have. It is totally possible to do that. And also, it is also possible to get some of the information from CAA as well. So that's the sort of stuff you can follow up with your liaison about, and talk to them about what sort of lists and information are available and all that sort of good stuff. And also for more in-depth support about how to import in your lists and everything like that, there are some great resources here inside of the nation, the Columbia One Nation, that can help you guys out. And I'm actually going to paste that link in there. And the other great resource is nationbuilder.com/support. If you ever have something that's not on the Columbia One Nation, and you talk to your liaison but just want to give it a go yourself, you're absolutely welcome to use our support documentation as well. It is built out specifically to help folks like you do get the most out of the product that they can. So first things first, let's just straight up RSVP for an event, shall we? So let's just go over here. Oh, yeah, I'm in the Columbia 250 Nation. And I want to find an event. I want to find an event, and I want to go to this alumni meetup that's happening. And so, oops, copy, and then So what I want to do is I want to create a completely new person in the nation. And so right now we're looking at our Columbia 250 Nation. We're looking at the calendar event that we created last time. So we're looking at that event that we created last time, and we are going to RSVP for it, just like we are a completely new person that's never interacted with the site before. So let us be Jennifer. Yeah, we'll be Jennifer And we're going to opt her in. And it's also possible to make sure that, you know, an RSVP publishes on Facebook from here. And that's something that you can control when you set up your RSVP. You see here that it thanks her for RSVPing, and it gives us this social media share prompt that we talked about at a certain point. If in case we didn't talk about it a lot last time, something that's really good to know is that this isn't like a regular share prompt. Like there are a lot of things that you can take actions for, like, you know, signing up for movie tickets, or like, you know, buying tickets to an event or something like that, donating on a political site if you've ever done anything like that. And it gives you a share prompt. It's like, hey, tell your friends that you know, gave me $5 or something like that. The thing that makes NationBuilder different is because we talked about this at the beginning, every single thing that someone does on your front-facing site of your nation ties back to your people database. So if somebody shares something on their Facebook or on their Twitter on here, it doesn't just like it doesn't just like go out into the ether of, you know, cyberspace and people can look at it, and that's really nice. But what it does is if anybody who sees Jennifer's social share prompt, so if they see that Jennifer RSVP'd for the alumni meetup on her Twitter, they click on that link and then they RSVP too, because they're like, yeah, I also want to go to this alumni meetup. I'm a CAA, I'm a Columbia University alum. I want to go. I miss everybody. If they click on that link and they sign up, their people record will show that they were recruited by Jennifer. So you can actually see who the biggest evangelists for your club are. Just simply completely baked into your nation itself, just simply by enabling the social share prompt for your events. And you can actually control which events have that, and all that sort of good stuff inside of the advanced settings for each of your events when you're setting them up. And for more details about that, you can talk to your CAA liaison. But let's step back and let's see exactly what happened when Jennifer RSVP'd. So yeah, we see that Jennifer Rockstar RSVP'd for Alumni Meetup. So let's click on her profile. So every single time somebody takes an action, and actually let me go back real fast. Every single time somebody takes an action, you will see that appear on your dashboard. It just appears in real time. It streams kind of like a Facebook like news feed. It's like that, but useful. And it shows every single action somebody's taken on your site, and also all the interactions that are occurring inside of your nation. Only people you've given control panel access can see this, and we're going to talk about that at the top of this session. But the important thing to know is that literally anytime someone takes an action, anytime anybody RSVPs, you will be able to see it in real time here on your dashboard. So we're going to click on Jennifer, and it'll take us immediately to her person profile. It'll take us immediately to this profile that has what we call our organizing core on it. And we're going to go into this in depth at a certain point, but the big thing to know for right now is that, hi, Stephen, is that we have Emily Morris is her point person. So what that means is that Emily is the person who is in charge of everyone who RSVPs for the event. And this is all stuff that we set up when we created the event itself, and Jason went into that with y'all. But just basically, we set all this stuff up at the beginning. So it's a lot harder, I'm sure you guys have had this experience, it's a lot harder to get organized after the fact than it is just to delegate everything up front. So in NationBuilder, we kind of force you to delegate everything up front. And the reason is because a lot of the richness of NationBuilder is a lot more accessible if you just start it all up front. Because it's built to have all of that organizational infrastructure baked into every aspect of the product. So the core idea to take away from today is that every single thing that you do offline on the ground already, there is a way to mimic it online in the NationBuilder platform, so that everything that you do is just organized digitally and it's accessible anywhere. So yeah. So Emily Morris is the point person for Jennifer, and that probably means that Emily is just the one who's in charge of creating this and managing this event. We also have another aspect of our organizing core, which is follow-ups right here. Follow-ups, you're able to open them and close them on anybody, but this follow-up was automatically opened on Jennifer when she RSVP'd for the event. So not only was this record created, not only was Emily assigned as her point person, but this follow-up was automatically created, and it's due in 3 days. So in 3 days' time, and we're going to look at that in a minute, In 3 days time, you can actually see a list of every single follow-up that you have. You can see a list of every single follow-up that you have in the entire nation. And Jennifer can Emily can log in 3 days, and she will see Jennifer needs to be followed up for outreach in 3 days time. And if Emily logs in now, she can see any of the RSVPs that she has open on her right now. She can see any of those things open right now, and she can like look at them and be like, oh, I need to get back to this person. I need to get back to them about this thing. The key important thing about follow-ups is that if you click on here, I'm going to sneeze. My apologies. Excuse me. You can see right here, the thing about follow-ups is that these can be customized. And we're going to talk about how to customize them at the end of this session. But they can be customized to any sort of conversation that you know you're going to need to have. So we start you out with the base set of them, like a fundraising appeal, inbox, invite, outreach, thank you. But you can customize it for literally anything that makes sense to you. So you can make an inbox specifically for Emily Morris if Emily is not just managing your events, but is also managing all of your follow-up for everybody in Rio de Janeiro, for example. If you have a club for all of Brazil and you're like, hey, Emily's our girl in Rio de Janeiro, you can make an inbox that's inbox Emily Morris. And anything that has to do with Rio, goes to Emily. It's just that simple. Or if you have something where, you have a couple of people who are all managing Brooklyn, not everybody has the time to manage that entire borough of New York City, but you've got several, 5, 6 people who are relatively good active members of your alumni association out there, and you're like, you know what, this group of people has volunteered to be responsible for Brooklyn, but I'm still in charge of the club. You can make an inbox, you can make follow-up Brooklyn as like a follow-up type. So you know that any of those 5 people who logs in will be able to see and knows to go and look at Brooklyn. So that it's really easy to delegate responsibility that way anyway, without having anybody fall through the cracks. So these follow-up types are really customizable. They're customizable to anything that makes sense for you and how you're organizing. But also you can set them up for any time that makes sense for you. So you can set them up, tomorrow, or an infinite number of days away. You can open up one for today, for example, and you can set it, and actually because this is Australia, that's yesterday, but you can easily open them from the screen, and you can also easily close them from the screen as well. So it makes it really accessible, easy to like set things up and open them as is appropriate for what you're doing. And this last aspect here is called tags. It's the last aspect of our organizing core, which is point, people, follow-ups, and tags. And tags is really the thing that attaches, these are attributes. They're kind of like Post-it notes that you're attaching to a person. So Jennifer would have something like, what class she graduated from. So if Jennifer Rockstar is, she's also like, I'm going to say liberal arts class of 2002, liberal arts. And also you see down here, NationBuilder is trying to be helpful. So if there's any tags that already exist, if there are any tags that already exist that look similar to what you're already trying to do, NationBuilder will drop them down and kind of prompt you so that you're not just creating willy-nilly tags all over the place, but it's actually trying to do something that's really helpful. So you could also be like class of 22, highly engaged, or something like that. Or you could be like, volunteer at, or here you go, volunteer sign up at an event. So you can save all those tags, and all of them will appear here. And these sticky notes are for attributes that tie Jennifer to other people in the community. So there are going to be lots of other people who are class of 2002 who graduated in the liberal arts department, but something like she likes pug dogs is probably not something that unifies her to everybody else in your club. That's something that's specific about Jennifer herself. We're going to look at something really cool that you can do with tags in a minute, but first we're going to look at how you would log something that's specific to Jennifer. Like you had a conversation with Jennifer and she told you she really likes pug dogs and that she really wants to have like, a pug dog walkers for Colombia sort of like event coming up. So that sort of conversation, you would go scroll down on Jennifer's profile, and you could post those things as note, emails, or you could log a contact. So it's possible, we talked actually at a certain point with Jason yesterday, you guys talked about sending out emails to folks. Well, you can send out blast emails, but you can also send out individual emails. So if you click on here, you can select the broadcaster, so Jason Trujillo. That's amazing. From the broadcaster, Jason Trujillo. And so you can speak as Jason Trujillo to Jennifer. And this is really helpful if you have something like, volunteer at Columbia or events at Columbia. There is no such thing as like an unmonitored info at email inside of a nation. That doesn't exist. It's not possible. Anybody who emails in, there's going to be follow-ups and point people and all that sort of wonderful organizing core that we talked about. All of that is also baked into a broadcaster. So you can have like a blanket volunteer email, you can have a blanket volunteer at Columbia broadcaster that you use for your nation. You could have a blanket sort of thing like that. And yeah, you could have a blanket sort of thing like that. And it's any single person who can talk to people inside of your nation. So anybody you give control panel access to, you can designate whether or not they have access to access to certain broadcasters, and you can make it so that only volunteers of a certain level have access to the volunteer at CAA broadcaster, and therefore they can talk to anybody as that broadcaster. So what do I mean by that? I mean, it is possible to send emails and speak to Jennifer Rockstar at CAA example. It's possible to email her directly from that volunteer at email. It's possible to email her from that broadcaster about literally anything directly from inside the nation. So not a bulk communication, but a one-to-one interaction. So thanks so much for signing up. Yay! I'm so excited to meet you. And if you've ever received an email from me, you realize that's actually, I use an egregious number of exclamation points, and we can send that email right from here. The thing that's an advantage to sending an email, and you get this nice little confirmation at the top, the advantage of sending an email inside of a nation rather than from an individual person's inbox is that, one, you can see that I was speaking as the Columbia Association. So if you have a blanket volunteer email or something like that, and you've shared it out, I've done this before in the past in my organizing, I've given just like everybody access to that inbox. I have absolutely no idea who wrote what emails. I have no idea whatsoever. There's no accountability. There's no transparency. I don't know who sent emails to whom. It's kind of a mess. Here, however, based upon me and my login, I'm logged in as Ariana Trujillo Robnet. And so I personally, as Ari, it shows that I, Ari, spoke as the Columbia Association and emailed Jennifer Rockstar. And it says, it has the content of the email right here. So if, Emily comes back, say I'm talking to Jennifer for some reason that doesn't have anything to do with the event, when Emily comes and she sees this outreach follow-up that's due in 3 days, when Emily comes to actually follow up with Jennifer about her sign up for this event, when she comes to follow up, she can just scroll down and see, oh yeah, well, Ari's been talking to her. I wonder what Ari's been talking to her about. There's no question there. There's no question who's been talking to Jennifer. There's no question about what they've been talking to her about. It's all right here. Now, that is really awesome because it means that you don't have the constant, there's some very few things more embarrassing than speaking to people as an organization and being disorganized. It is humiliating if you're a person like me. It's just kind of a mess. And you don't have to do that anymore. That sort of disorder is optional. It's something you have to actively choose to do now if you run everything inside of your nation. So it just makes it easier to do the things you already want to do. Invariably, you're going to have alumni who need to speak to multiple people about multiple different things. You can totally do that now and not worry about any sort of mess now. A couple of other things. You can log a contact. So let's say, for example, you are on a webinar. Oops. It doesn't seem to want to listen to me today. I don't know why it doesn't like me. So let's say that, oh, there you go. Let's say you knocked on somebody's door, for example, for whatever reason that you guys would be doing this. Or actually, let's say that, they sent you a tweet. So you can be like, Jennifer loves pug dogs. I don't know why these are in quotes, but they are. Um, Jennifer loves pug dogs. She wants to run a pug dogs for CAA event. So you can actually say, and like you can log it as a meaningful interaction, you can say what broadcaster was speaking, and you can log that she was contacted. So even like contacts that happen offline, so like at an event, say at this event, you run into Jennifer, you have an interaction with her, and you're like, dude, she was talking a lot about pug dogs. I have to make sure I follow up with her about that. You don't have to like write that down in like a Google task or something like that anymore. You can just log it on somebody's profile as a logged contact and open up a follow-up for yourself and be like, yeah, I gotta remember to follow up with her, you know, in like a few days. Oh, I have to remember to follow up with her in a few days about, you know, running some really awesome pug dog stuff. I gotta remember to do that. So set that. And then you can just open that. You can just open that for yourself, and then you don't have to like have random slips of paper. You don't have to have all of these business cards that you're sorting through like a few days later and being like, "Who are you? I don't know who these people are." You don't have to do that anymore. And finally, if there's something like that is a private note, that's not necessarily something that you want that is reflective of a conversation you've already had or is like an email that you've sent. So if it's not a conversation you had with Jennifer and it's not an email, but it's like a private note that's specifically useful to other people who have control panel access. Like, for example, Jennifer needs to be called Jenny. Like something like that. It's not a contact. It's not an email that's been sent. It's just something that you know about Jennifer. It's like she needs to be called Jenny. Calling her Jenbot makes her sad. Something like this is what you should put in a private note. It's not something Jennifer needs to know that you know about her necessarily. It's just like a courtesy that's helpful for other people who would be talking to her. So that's something that's good to know. So these are all things that are really, really helpful. These are all things that are really, really helpful when you're looking at an individual person's profile. And we're going to jam through a couple of things, so I apologize if I'm going too quickly. There are something, hi Ashley, that's cool to know about point people, because point people is a really powerful tool. The way you make somebody a point person is that you give them control panel access. So this kind of makes sense. It may not immediately, but bear with me, trust me, it does, it makes complete sense. A point person is somebody inside of your nation who can manage other people. So in order for somebody to be a point person, they need to have control panel access, or else that designation doesn't mean anything. So if we go here to edit, we go to Jennifer Rockstar. No worries, Ashley, we got you. We've saved all this stuff for you, I promise. So if you go to edit inside of Jennifer's profile and scroll down, you can actually change who her point person is. And it tells you here that anybody, NationBuilder is again trying to be helpful. This gray text is normally like really helpful stuff. Anyone with control panel access can be a point person. So if we want to make Jennifer a point person, that means that we just have to give her control panel access. And so these are the permission levels that we already have inside of the nation. We can have up to 5 of them, and we're going to create them at the end. But we can just give her any of these permission levels, and then she will become a point person in this drop down for somebody else. And now you can actually see if we want to change her point person from being like Emily Morris to Jacqueline. We can do that. We can just change that to Jacqueline, save this person, and now here you go. Her point person is now Jacqueline. So that's really good. There's one other thing I want to show you guys before we dive deep into Jennifer's, we dive out of Jennifer's profile and go a little bit more. So if we go to the dashboard of your nation, we have your activity stream here, which is amazing. And you can see all these things that I've done, like posting private notes. Don't call her Jenbot. It does make her sad. Mostly confused, I would assume. If you go to dashboard and then follow up, you'll see every single follow-up that needs to be completed inside of your nation. So you can also sort by the type of follow-up that's due. So what type of conversation? So like the example I gave about like, you know, like inbox Brooklyn. So you can create a follow-up type that's inbox Brooklyn, and it doesn't matter who somebody's assigned to. You can just see every single person inside of the nation that has that follow-up due on them. You'll see that there are two columns. There's overdue and then there's due today. And that's because NationBuilder has kind of like a Zen Buddhist approach to follow-ups, which is that you take care of what you have to do today and you take care of the stuff that you have overdue. Don't worry about the stuff that's due to tomorrow because you don't have to do it yet. So you really focus on the things that you have to do today and the things that you have overdue. If you look at people too, you can look at people from this view and realize that they need to have different follow-ups opened on them or closed. So we can just click on, if we click on more here on Jacqueline's thing, and I think I've just broken NationBuilder. I think I did. So let's just go to all types, actually. And if I look at the best of the Emilys, if I click on more, I can change the due date. So this was opened in December. And we're like, nah, we need this to be opened and due today. So the volunteer recruitment is going to be open today. And we realize we want an inbox follow-up due on the 27th. And then that's it. We close it. You will always see the one that is either the most overdue or the most overdue is what you will see first. So if somebody doesn't have anything that's, you know, overdue, then you'll see the one that's open on them today, like you see on Jennifer Rockstar and the best of the Emilys. But if you're like Cake Magic McLuggin here, then you have something that's overdue 112 days. You can see that if we have something that's overdue by 23 days, the 112 days takes precedence. So this is really helpful because you can then delegate out whole segments of your nation. You can be like, yeah, everybody who's in Brooklyn needs this follow-up type. Awesome. And then you can also look at, say, you have to cover for Emily Morris. Say Emily's sick. And you're like, bulls, we still have people who need to talk. We still need people who need to get spoken to. The show must go on. There's still follow-ups that are due and all that sort of good stuff. But Emily can't do them. Well, because the way NationBuilder works, I have the ability to see, because of my permission level, I have the ability to see everybody's follow-ups. It's completely transparent. So I can look and see everybody that Emily Morris needs to talk to, who are a lot of people. I can see all of those folks, and I can start talking to them, which is really, really helpful because it means nobody falls through the cracks no matter what. So there's not only always accountability, there's always transparency, and there's always accessibility. So these are really, really important concepts inside of NationBuilder. So yeah, so that's dashboard, follow-up. And you can have all the follow-up view, and you can sort it by point people, or you can sort it by follow-up type. So one more thing that we're gonna do to look at people in aggregate, and then we're gonna really, really focus on this. So if I'm on Jennifer Rockstar's profile, you know how we talked about these tags, how they're Post-it notes and how awesome they are? Well, if you click on a Post-it note, or if you click on a tag, if you click on a tag here, you'll see that it actually takes you, you'll see that it actually takes you to Shazam, a list of all 78 people that also have that tag. And this is really, really cool. You can see all of these people, and yeah, so I don't have to dig through 29 different sign-up sheets from an event 6 months ago to try to find every single person who signed up to volunteer in an event. I don't have to do that anymore. All I have to do is, under people, I can just search for everybody who has that tag. So yeah, if I'm looking for every member who's a newscaster, who is the newscaster member levelship, wow, I am, let's try that again. If I want to find every single person who has a newscaster level membership in 2013, I can find all those folks because these folks are all tagged. We can also see everybody who is the bake sale volunteer tag and bring up a list of all of those people too. So this is all really, really cool. But let's say you know that you have a list of folks, like you know, like you don't have a tag yet, but you know that there's like certain attributes that you're looking for. Like, you know, you want to find every single person who has an email address and who, you know, has, you know, signed up to, who is like has a membership and has an email address, so you can invite them to this new, you know, members only event. Well, we can do that. Under people and advanced search, that's totally possible. Now, we have a lot of documentation about how to do this search. I'm just gonna copy the link address and paste it in here. It's really, really helpful. But I've spent a long time running queries in SQL servers and doing VLOOKUPs in Excel spreadsheets and stuff like that. And this is really awesome because everything that I do, every person who takes an action on my front-facing website, all of those people automatically feed into a database that I can easily search from the same place that I can email them from, that I can add them to lists from, that I can contact them from. And that's really different than a lot of the other stuff I've dealt with. So you'll have to excuse me for nerding out a little bit. So let's put together that search. We want every single person who is a member and has an email address. We want all of those folks. So we're gonna go to advanced search and we're gonna add criteria. And so we're gonna search by email and we're gonna search by emailable. So everybody who's emailable, and we're also gonna search by, and you can just like straight up search for stuff that's important. So if you don't necessarily know which little category it lives in, like membership, you can just type in member and it will be like, oh, you know, member and is a member. It can be that simple, or it can actually get more complicated than that. You can be like membership level and it will give you the options, like, so you can either be like is a member, period, it doesn't matter what, or you can be like membership level is then, and you can pick whatever membership level is the ones that you want. You can also choose by several membership levels. So if you want everyone who has a magic membership and so see how it says and? So we want people who their membership level is magic membership and their membership level is newscaster member. So I can be like, I want everybody who is emailable and is either a magic member or a newscaster member. So I can do a search that's even that fine-tuned, or I can do just every member, period. It doesn't matter. You can also search by, another thing that might be useful for folks like y'all, is to search by whether their membership has started or expired. So you can be like, hey, everyone whose membership expired just now, I need to send out an email to you guys and be like, hey, I just, you know, blah, I'm sad. Or also here's something. So you can be like, everybody whose membership level expires now or has expired, or people whose membership is it going to expire before or on a date, or has expired in the last 2 weeks, or has expired, is going to expire in the next 2 weeks. We actually took care of that. Stephen has a question about whether or not we talked about engaging content. We actually talked about that in webinar number 1. And you can find that on the Columbia One Nation, actually. So yeah, it's just here, Columbia One, and then webinars. And you can actually see not only how to sign up for them, like you guys just did right now, but you can actually go into the archives and it has a lot of Jason and I talking. You can access all of us talking that you could possibly want and more. So yeah, so you can find out more about that there. And you can also talk to your liaison. So hopefully that helps. But yes, so say we're trying to find everybody who is emailable, and, you know, who match all of the following criteria, or we wanted to do something like people whose membership expires in the next, you know, 10 days. We can also make a list like that, which would be really helpful if you're just trying to get folks that maybe are going to lapse. You just want to re-engage them. So that's all really helpful. The final thing that I'll note is that it is possible also to do a search by geography. So in the example of Rio de Janeiro, you want every single person who lives in Rio to be assigned to a certain point person. Well, you can do a search by address and then by address city. So you want to find everybody whose address is in Rio, for example. Like you could totally make that a search criteria. So there's lots and lots of stuff that you can do here that's completely based upon what it is you're trying to achieve. My recommendation is whenever you're looking at doing searches is that you think about what specifically it is that you want first and then try to build the search from there. So I've done a lot of talking. Let's finish up with these searching. So let's do this search. So we want to find all of the people who have this done. Well, actually, we got no results. And why? Well, it makes sense because I actually didn't do this right. We want people who match all of the following criteria. It's not possible for people to have a Magic membership and a Newscaster membership. So I need to switch this from all to any. And that changes, actually, you can see how the syntax here changes. It now goes, I want everyone who's emailable and who matches any of the following criteria, which means that they either have a membership of Magic membership or a Newscaster membership. That'll probably bring us a bunch of good results. And whoosh kala, it does. So now we have a list of 156 people. And we can see all their tags, who their point people are, all that stuff. So now there are a couple of things that we can do here. The first thing is that we can save this as a filter. And the thing that I would like to tell you guys about filters is that those are dynamic search criteria. So you can actually make so it constantly updates. It's flexible and moves in real time. So for example, you could make a filter that is everyone whose membership expires in the next 14 days and save that as a filter. Now, in the next 14 days, well, as time passes, that's going to change. In 14 days today is different than in 14 days a week from now. If you save that as a filter, you never have to update that search again. You just save that search, save it as a filter, and then different people will roll in and out of that search, but the goal is still going to be the same. So you can just look at it once every 2 weeks and just send an email to those folks. So that's a filter. On the other hand, a list, and we're going to click on this giant plus button right here, and we're going to create a list called members emailable Magic and Newscaster. So we're just going to create that, and then we're going to save them to it. So we created, no, what was the error? This makes me sad. I'm very saddened by this. Oh well. There was an error adding these people to your list. Maybe if I try running the search again. But the idea is that it's actually really easy. The idea is it's actually really easy to add all these people to a list, and it's also really easy to add all these people and save that as a filter. So you can save this as emailable Magic and Newscasters. Newscasters. I went to a public school, pardon me. And now you can see this filter that we set up. You can see emailable RSVPs, you can see emailable volunteers, these sorts of filters and everything like that. And you can click on them at any time and it will give you the current results of that filter. And these results are going to change dynamically as your database changes, as your people change. So as more people RSVP, well, you're going to get more people with that tag. As more people become Magic and Newscaster members, more of those people are going to end up qualifying to be inside of this filter. So this number can go up and it can go down. Of 156, the results here can go up and can go down based upon the results of your nation. And yeah, in advanced search, typically what you can do is you can just put together your search criteria, save the results of that search, and then click on that plus button to add them to a list. For whatever reason, we're running into a problem, but let me show you what a list looks like when it is filled with folks, because there's a lot of really cool stuff that you can do with that once people have been added to that list. So we're inside of a list now, and so just to slow down a little bit, we are in people and in lists. We created a list, this isn't a list I created in the past, from advanced search. That is emailable RSVPs, so people who have an email address and have RSVP'd for an event before. And so we're under people and we're under lists. What we can do here is that we can batch update all these folks. And batch update means, like, you know how you can add, like we did on Jacqueline's, on Jennifer's profile, we manually added tags to her. We were like, yeah, and she's a member of this, and yeah, and she's got this thing. Well, we can do that for every single person in Nation individually, or we can do it all at once. So for this 156 people, we're going to batch update all of these people with a tag. So the action to take is we're going to apply a tag to them, and we're going to say they're all CAA members in Brisbane. We're going to update all these people. Yep. So we're adding this tag to 156 people. So you can make a list, for example, you can make a list of every single person who came to an event but isn't actually a member. You can make that search too, add those folks to a list and batch update them as event attendees without a membership. For example, nobody falls through the cracks. We will get you to sign up to become members. You can batch update those people with that sort of tag. You can also, if you have everybody who attended an event, or if you manage to find, for example, everybody in Rio de Janeiro, and you know that Emily Morris needs to be, actually, that you know that Fernando needs to be the point person for everybody in Rio de Janeiro, you can be like, oh, well, I did a search for everybody in Rio de Janeiro who is a member, and I know that they need Fernando to be their point person. So let's just scroll down and find, we want them, Fernando, to be their point person. So Fernando's not a point person yet, but we're going to make Emily Arnold the point person for all of these folks. So we could do the exact same sort of thing for Fernando. We could do a search, add everybody to a list, and batch update them with a new point person. You can also do the same thing for follow-ups. You can batch update people for follow-ups and be like, hey, I assigned Fernando all these new people. I should probably let them know that I did. So we're going to create a whole bunch of new follow-ups that are going to be open for Fernando inside of this nation, so that all of those folks will have, when Fernando logs in next, like you could tell Fernando, hey, I added all these new people that you need to contact and introduce yourself as their new point person. You could tell him that. And then one day he'll log in and see inside of his follow-up dashboard all of these people he needs to talk to. And it'll be wonderful and lovely. Something else, the final thing that's really helpful is that it's also possible to look at people in map view. This is actually my favorite thing that we can do inside of a nation, is people lists, and inside of a list you can use map view. So what it does is that if you're not, zoomed into like an absurd degree, it'll give you push pins like on a Google map. So it'll give you a push pin for every single individual person. So for example, if you were trying to figure out where to hold your next alumni event at, and you looked and you had all of these people who were in Hollywood, it probably wouldn't make sense to hold your event in Santa Monica, because you'll have significantly fewer people turn out if they have to travel all the way that far. So what you can do is you can look at this and be like, hey, I should hold an event in Hollywood instead. Another way to think about it is if you have the example that we talked about earlier of, every single person in a borough inside of New York. What you can do is that you can take a look within the borough of Brooklyn, and you can be like, I want to divide up Brooklyn. But it's not really easy to do that in terms of like cities and stuff like that. It's not actually easy to do that. But what you can do is you can look at the map here and you can turf cut it and be like, everybody who's in Bensonhurst and Park Slope is going to go and be assigned to Stephen. And you can just save everybody in those points as Stephen's new people. And I can make sure to share it specifically with Stephen. This list down here, by the way, is everybody in my nation who has control panel access. So I can decide to share that list only with Stephen, because Stephen is in charge of all my Bensonhurst folks. We just decided that that's who he's in charge of, so that's what I'm going to do. And I just saved that list. And I can make an infinite number. I can be like, hey, everyone in Bushwick and Williamsburg and Greenpoint, you guys are all going to hang out. And that's a new list. And those are, Ashley's people. And save it with Ashley. And share that list with Ashley. So I can create an infinite number of these. I can parse out things by geography and assign them to new folks. Or what you can also do is you can help to determine where it is that it makes sense to hold different events based upon where your folks are located geographically. So that's all really awesome and interesting. So let's take a step back. We did a lot of really awesome stuff. But how do we create per custom permission levels. How does this work internationally? So it's actually awesome that you asked that, Fernando and Molly. So the way that this works internationally is, yeah, if we still geocode information. So when we get lists in, we geocode them. So when people sign up for events and things like that, when they enter in their information when they're RSVPing, NationBuilder takes in their address information and geocodes it. So for example, inside of the Australia, the Columbia 250, the Columbia 250 nation is an Australian nation. What it would do is that it would base it on zip code, and it also base it on where it is that your nation is set up for. So for example, and actually we're going over to this tab, if we go to settings, and you look at contact, we have the name of the organization here. Based upon what we have in settings contact is what it'll try to geocode based on. So if you tell it that you're in, say, Australia, if I tell it it's in Sydney, Australia, and then I also click the country Australia, if I save that, if somebody enters in like a partial address, so they just enter in like, they don't enter in country, but they just enter in like, city and state and, their zip code and all that sort of good stuff, we will geocode that information, presuming because of where the nation is, we'll assume that everybody who enters in information into this particular nation is in Australia. That's what we'll work under the auspices of. In the same way for your guys' nation, it would, when you do your settings and everything like that, and you can talk to your liaison, in terms of settings contact, you can specify that you're in Brazil. And so anybody who enters in like, their first name, last name, and their address and zip code, NationBuilder will then be like, oh, these people are in Brazil, and geocode them based upon them being in Brazil. And so, yeah, you'll be able to use map view exactly like you would if you were in the United States or in Britain or in Australia or any of those other places. So what if they are not inside of Brazil? Well, that is a trickier edge case. And there's something really cool that we can do there. You can actually go inside of individual people's profiles. Like if you're like, none of these people are being geocoded right, because they're not in this location, you can actually, I'm pretty certain there's a workaround, is what we refer to it as, and not to go too deep into it, but you can make it so that country is a field people can enter their information into when they're signing up on the front-facing site. So if they're not inside of Brazil, say they're in Argentina or something like that, they could specify it in there. You can also go inside of their individual person's profile and change that manually if you need to. So those are kind of the workarounds there. But you should probably talk to, I think Miss Jennifer would know actually the best about how to handle that specifically. So we do work with a lot of folks internationally though. So we can help. We can help. We definitely can work it out. But let's just keep going because we got a couple of more things we got to make sure we cover. Under settings, defaults, there are a couple of quick things that are really important. The most important under settings defaults is contact types. And contact type is another way in which to describe follow-ups. So see, this should look really familiar. These are the things that we saw in our drop-down. So if we decide to have inbox Rio, we can add that as a contact type. So every single person who's specific to our Rio club, we could totally do that. Or we could have, an inbox Bushwick and Williamsburg. We could totally have that as a contact type as well. So it's totally possible for us to customize as many of these as we want, and for us to delete them if it turns out it doesn't make sense. Like if you go Bushwick and Williamsburg, those two guys shouldn't be together. We should have Williamsburg be with the kids that are organizing, the Greenwich Village or whatever. Like if that's what the thing that makes the most sense, you can totally delete contact types and create new ones. It's also possible if you realize that maybe this isn't the best way to describe how you're using the outreach follow-up, it is possible to rename the outreach follow-up outreach event follow-up, for example. And so every place in the nation where somebody already has an outreach follow-up open on them, it will change to reading outreach event follow-up instead. So it's possible to change these things dynamically based upon what your club is doing and what makes the most sense infrastructurally. And the final thing that we're going to talk about is permission levels. So it's possible to create a permission set. You can create up to 5. Pardon me. Admin will always be a permission set, and an admin is the person who has absolute access into the entirety of your nation. And you, as the admin of your nation, can determine who else has access to anything else in your nation and to what they have access. So let's create a new permission set here. So let's make this our Hollywood captain. So let's just make this our neighborhood captain. So we've got a neighborhood captain in Hollywood, a neighborhood captain downtown LA, we've got a neighborhood captain down Santa Monica. We can determine here under people, we can determine if they have access to see everybody in your nation or only people that are assigned to them. So for example, we want to make sure that everybody who is a neighborhood captain can only see people that are assigned to them. So if Emily Morris is a neighborhood captain, unless she's somebody's point person, she can't see them. She can't change anything on their profile. She can't do anything like that. For example, another example of that is you can make it so that she can see absolutely no people. So if you have somebody who's coming in specifically just to put up events on your website and stuff like that, but they don't need to do anything else, you can make it so that they can see absolutely nobody in your people database and they can't edit anything there. So let's make this neighborhood captain only able to see people that are assigned to them. And we're going to make it so that they can import in lists. So like say they have an event in their neighborhood and they just want to like type it all up into a spreadsheet and import it in. Cool, they can do that, but they can't export any information. And they can manage things like, other stuff. We're going to make it so that they can, we're just going to switch it to no, but we're going to say that they can, we're going to say that they can publish pages and they can create and edit pages, but they can't manage site settings and they can't change the theme. The inverse of what I just said. We want to make it so that they can create and edit pages and publish them, but they can't change the site settings or the theme. So we want them to be able to like publish events and blog posts about what they're doing in their neighborhood, but we don't want them like changing what country or language the site is in or change, the entire look and feel. And we also we don't want them to manage a broadcaster or manage email themes. We want to make it possible for them to create and edit blasts and to send them, because we realize that they're only going to be able to see people that are assigned to them anyway. So they're only going to be able to send and edit email blasts out to the people that are assigned to them. So only the people in, say, Hollywood, if Emily is in charge of Hollywood. We're like, no finances controls for you. And we're also going to make it so that they can't add control panel users, manage permission sets, or change billings and add-ons. So we're not going to let them play around with how we receive money, who has access to the nation, or anything else like that. But we're only going to let them have as much permission as they need in order to do what they need to do. So it's possible, based upon how you've set up your infrastructure, if you have neighborhood captains, if you have someone who's just in charge of communications, if you have someone who's really good with money, it is possible to completely change how you've organized everything inside of your nation to reflect what you're already doing, and possibly to even make it better. So this is the last of our 3 sessions. Let's just take a brief step back, because we've done a lot of stuff. You guys have learned over the last 3 sessions how to control everything on your front-facing site, the look and feel of it, how to embed content, how to change your content sliders, the footers, all that sort of good stuff, and to put up new events. You guys have learned how to make it possible for people to sign up, to put up completely new pages, to control, if people can post things live, if you can make pages accessible only to members or not. You've learned how to set up memberships. You guys have learned how to edit people once they're inside your people database, how to create lists for those folks, send email blasts to them, look at whole lists and add tags and view people on a map, and also how to give permission settings and all that sort of good stuff to other people inside of your nation. So that's a lot of really awesome and cool stuff that you guys have learned how to do. And there's much more that you guys can learn how to do with it too. There's a really amazing set of resources and ideas and examples from alumni groups that the Columbia folks have started to put together. And any way you guys want to contribute that based upon what you guys are doing is really awesome and great. So yeah, and we're just at about time. So if there's, hi Jasmina, is there any questions or anything like that that you guys have for us? Feel free to type them into the meeting chat. Everybody's still muted because sound. Yay! Thank you guys for showing up. I'm gonna unmute. Hi, you guys are in Rio. That's so cool. I'm gonna actually unmute you guys for a New York minute. Yeah, absolutely. I encourage you guys to play around with it. The best way to learn this stuff is by playing with stuff and breaking it. Yeah, email Megan or your liaison with any questions or anything like that that you guys have. This stuff is going to be uploaded to the Columbia One Nation really soon. So if you guys have any questions or anything like that, if you guys need to review any of the stuff that we went through, you absolutely can. And yeah, that should be about all that you guys need from me for right now. So thank you guys very much for attending. I know it's a lot, but you guys can play around with it and you guys will have a lot of fun. So we'll talk to you guys later. Ah, Jasmina has a thing. Wait. Oh, hi. Sorry. I'm Ari. I'm Ariana Trujillo Robnet is my name. I am in fact logged in as Jason. Yes, I am in fact logged in as Jason because that's just the name that we chose. That it was supposed to be logged onto this account. But yeah, I'm Ariana Trujillo Robnet. I'm one of the trainers here, and yeah, absolutely. Feel free to talk to Megan, any of your CAA liaisons if you guys have questions about this stuff. They're a really, really great resource and they're very helpful. And yeah, they'll totally be able to help you with any sort of questions or anything like that that you guys have. So yeah, thank you guys so much. This will be up and live on the site later, and we'll talk to you later.